This was the capital of horse breeding and raising in all of Japan for hundreds of years. Hi, this is Quinlan, and in this video I'd like to talk about Morioka, the city in northern Japan where I've lived for the last 12 years. It was recently catapulted into a bit of fame, you might say, in 2023 when a New York Times journalist, Craig Maude, put it forward as one of the 52 places to visit in 2023. In fact, I'm really curious if you've even heard of that New York Times article, and so if you don't mind in the comments, leave a note on whether or not you had heard of that. Morioka, as you may know, is the capital of Iwate. It's not that big of a city. It's just under 300,000 people, and it is about a 2-hour and 10 minutes-ish bullet train ride from Tokyo Station. I'd like to actually do a series of videos about Morioka, about the culture, things to do while you're here, the food, etc. But in this video, I want to talk about the history. And when you're talking about the history of a place, it's always difficult to decide where to start. I mean, this area has been inhabited since the Paleolithic period. Today, I'd like to talk about the Nambu clan. I'm standing right now at the site of Morioka Castle, where it used to be, and the stone walls are basically all that remain. We were on the wrong side of the Boshin War, the Japanese Civil War in 1868, and so the castle was dismantled. Now just these walls remain, though it's become a beautiful park. I think I'll walk around a little bit while I tell you the history of this samurai clan. They were part of the force that came up and fought and destroyed the northern Fujiwara clan, which is another really interesting story that I'll get into another time. And they were then given this region to govern. This part of northern Japan was perfect for raising horses, and in fact, all of the best war horses in Japan were bred and raised up here. The area they controlled was so vast that the family was split up into at least 6 different groups, and so more than one unified samurai family, you had sort of a federation of different rulers. So for the first several hundred years, the Nambu clan was based way farther up to the north in an area now called Sannohe. How was it that they ended up building this castle here about 400 years ago, around the year 1600? That brings us to Nambu Nobunao. He was the 26th generation clan leader. He was actually not going to be the leader. He was a cousin of the actual leader, but when the clan lord didn't have children, there was a number of factions that were all competing to take on rulership of the clan. There was another leader who had strong support, whose name was Nambu Masazane. Nobunao, however, made the savvy decision to go down and swear his allegiance to Toyotomi Hideyoshi, who is one of those 3 great uniters of Japan. He got military support from Hideyoshi. So who's the other guy, Masazane? Well, he was, by all reports, a great warrior who was loved by his people and had a powerful fortress up in Kunohei. He had only 5,000 soldiers under his command, whereas Nobunao was able to get 50,000 soldiers from Hideyoshi in central Japan to march up north and aid him. So 50,000 soldiers come up to Kunohei Castle with only 5,000 defenders. They couldn't take it immediately because it's a really nice castle. It's on a hill, there's rivers on 3 sides of it, but the writing was on the wall. So after just 4 days of siege, he negotiated a surrender, the terms of which would be that he would be executed and that the other people under him would be spared. However, the terms of the surrender were not respected. After he was out of there and they opened up the gates, they executed not only Masazane, but his family, the other samurai under him, and then they locked the gates of the main castle building and they set it on fire and let it burn for 3 days until every man, woman, and child was killed horribly in that fire. If you go up to modern-day Ninohe, you can actually see the site where that castle once stood, as well as a little, they've made a manga, a little comic book about that Kunohei rebellion. Jumping back for a moment to the present day. Now, when you come around to the front of the Morioka Castle Site Park, you'll find a shrine called Sakurama Shrine. And as opposed to a lot of Japanese shrines, it's not dedicated to the Hachiman god or the Inari god. It's actually dedicated to 4 of the Nambu clan lords, including that lord Nambu Nobunao, his son, also the founder of the Nambu clan, and one who was the 36th generation of the Nambu clan. And they are enshrined here and have become gods, though they were once men. it was getting a little loud over by the shrine, and so I just zipped down to the side of the Nakatsu River, which is, again, right next to the park, right next to the shrine. This is all right here in central Morioka. Of course, Morioka has 3 rivers that go right through it, this being the smallest of them, the Nakatsu River. There's also the Kitakami River, the 4th longest river in all of Japan, and the Shizukuishi River, which flows right into it. So after Nambu Nobunao put down the Kunohei Rebellion, as it was to be later framed, he decided to move the castle down to the more central area of present-day Morioka right here. And it took 36 years to build that castle, so it was actually his grandson who was the ruler of the Nambu clan when the castle was finally finished. Nambu Nobunao is the reason why Morioka exists in this exact location. There was no city here before that. The city grew up around the castle, and as a result, you've got what you see in other castle towns around Japan, these narrow, winding streets all over the place. It's pretty hard to drive in some areas, like the street where I live in my house. People think it's a one-way street because the road literally only has room for one car to go through it. And so if another car is coming, either they end up playing chicken or one of the cars will go into a parking lot or have to back out so the other car can go in. It's kind of a pain. But that's just what castle towns are like, both because they organically develop around the castles and because they intentionally made the roads winding and confusing so invading forces couldn't just go straight to the castle. They would have to wind around and not be able to invade as easily. One thing that the Nambu clan did during their rule was call a number of artisans and craftsmen to come to Morioka and set up shop. This part of northern Japan had a huge amount of iron deposits near the surface, and as a result it was ideal for cast ironware. So a number of cast iron artisans set up workshops here at the call of the Nambu clan lords, and Nambu teki, as it's called, or the Nambu ironware, is famous all over Japan and in fact worldwide. These little teapots that they make locally here are exported to France, to the United States. Even in Madison, Wisconsin, where I grew up, there was a cafe called the Sunroom Cafe, later the Sun Porch Cafe, I believe, where they used Morioka cast iron teapots, and I saw them as a teenager when I was going to that cafe. And so I wanted to just show you one example of these cast iron teapot things here. There's a number of these workshops all over the city, and I just happened to be walking by one of them right now. Let's take a look. This one is Kamasada. It's one of the newer ones. Some of the older cast iron places have been open 15 and 16 generations. This one, I believe, is only a 3-generation business, but it still uses that same traditional style. Let's take a look. These cast iron teapots you see on the wall over here are characteristic of what people usually associate with Nambu teki. You can see they've got these little black bumps on them here. But these days, not everyone drinks tea, and so they've started making a lot of other things out of cast iron using the same traditional techniques. Everything from jewelry, like this, to other implements and cookingware, even heavy cast iron chopsticks. One other thing that a lot of people associate with Morioka, perhaps with Iwate in general, is Wono Soba. So this right behind me is Azumaya, which is the most famous place for Wono Soba. You probably know about Wono Soba. If you don't, it's something that's rather famous online. You can find any number of different videos on YouTube and elsewhere about it. It involves just stacks and stacks and stacks of bowls in front of you because you are served little bowls of soba, 1 bite per bowl, and you try to eat 100 or more of them. You get a little certificate. Anyways, it's a recipe for a miserable day. The soba here is delicious and wonderful. You should definitely go there and eat soba, but the Wono Soba experience, it's an eating competition, and in my experience, it just knocks you out. I don't recommend doing it if you have anything else planned for that day. For me, the interesting part of Wono Soba is how it is said to date back to the samurai period, to the son of Nambu Nobunao, in fact. His name was Toshinao. And you may have also heard during the feudal era, there was something called the Sankin Kotai, which is where, in order to prevent rebellion, the Tokugawa shogun set up a system where all of the local daimyo, the local clan lords of the various samurai clans, had to have their family living in Edo, sort of as almost prisoners or hostages with the central lord, the Tokugawa shogun there, and they would every other year go and spend a year there. So they spend 1 year where they're from, in this case in Morioka Castle, and then 1 year in Edo. And this was called the Sankin Kotai. And that resulted in huge processions of people because the samurai lords, all their retainers, all these things going from all over Japan back and forth to Edo and to the various places all over. And this resulted in great roads and wonderful system of post towns with traditional charming inns and things like that, and lots of culinary culture. One example of that is Wono Soba. In Hanamaki, not actually in Morioka, but just a little bit to the south, in Hanamaki was the first Wono Soba. And that is where this Nambu clan lord, Nambu Toshinao, son of Nobunao, is said to have first gotten served a soba banquet where he was just kept being served, someone standing over him, another bowl, another bowl, another bowl, and this became a tradition and still remains to this day, which you can do, but if you do it, take it easy. Maybe stop at 40 bowls. Don't shoot for the 100. You'll just, as I said, it ruins your day. So you may wonder, okay, I'm always talking about Nambu this, Nambu that. Why is Morioka in the prefecture of Iwate, not Nambu? Well, they changed it with the Meiji era when the emperor retook control. It's, again, another story. But the name Iwate, literally in the Japanese kanji, is rock or boulder and hand. Rock hand. And there's a couple of theories as to where that originated, and the more interesting of them is connected to this shrine that's right behind me. Let's go take a look. This is Mitsuishi, or Three Rock Shrine. So the legend of this shrine is that there was a demon named Rasetsu who was terrorizing the area, destroying homes, eating people, basically doing what you would imagine a giant ogre demon might do. And the local people prayed to the god of this shrine. This god, Mitsuishi, then answered their prayers, and he imprisoned the demon Rasetsu here. As you know, in ancient times, people would often use a handprint as a way of signing their name. And so the demon in this way affixed his signature, as it were, onto these rocks in a pledge that he would never return and never again terrorize the villagers and do nasty things like destroying homes and eating people. And the people, in celebration of having vanquished the demon and been free of him, are said to have danced around singing Sansa Sansa, and this was the origin of the most famous festival here in Morioka, the Sansa dance, the Sansa Odori, which holds the Guinness World Record for the most taiko dancers in any one procession. So that's one theory of this name Iwate. The other theory comes from a different interpretation of the kanji. Iwate, as I said, is rock and hand, but a lot of T's become D sounds in local dialect here. And so Iwate might be pronounced by locals Iwade. And so de could also then be to deru, to protrude, to be sticking out. And this area is full of huge rocks sticking out everywhere. So, like these boulders behind me. And so that theory is that in this area there were just rocks all over the place, which there are, and so the area was generally just called a place with lots of boulders sticking out. Less interesting. Let's go with the demon one. So I hope this little taste of Morioka's founding and early history makes you curious to learn more. I'll be doing future videos that go into other aspects of the history, both before and after, to more modern times. And when I have time, I'd also like to explore some of the restaurants, some of the other tourist destinations, and give you little peeps of different parts of Morioka to maybe spark your interest and make you want to come and visit the city, not just for the glorious mountains and volcanoes and coastline that are nearby here, but also for the city itself, which does warrant exploration. Again, I'm curious if you'd heard about the New York Times article that put Morioka as listed second after London as one of the 52 places you should visit in 2023. A very big deal was made out of this article in Japan, and I'm curious how many of you knew about that as well. So let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the trails.